everybody, Richard again here from Electric Classic Cars, and today's video is all going to be about the Gordon Keeble. Now this is probably the rarest, in fact probably, it is the rarest car by far that we've converted to electric. There was only 100 of these ever made, and I think there's around about 90 of them still in existence. I'm pretty sure it's the rarest car that's ever been converted to electric, but comments below if there's a rarer one. And before you all go, oh, Ferrari 308, no, there's thousands of those got made. So yeah, I'll be curious to know if this is probably the rarest. So what is a Gordon Keeble? There's probably loads of you out there going, never seen that car before. And you'll be in the same camp as me when I first saw it, because I didn't have a clue about it. I thought I was a petrol head, knew about cars, never heard about the Gordon Keeble. So, you know, what it's all about. So it's a mid-1960s gentleman's GT, if you like. So a Grand Tourer from the 1960s, styled by Bertoni. Giugiaro at Bertoni did the styling on it. Built in the UK. It had an American drivetrain, so it's a Chevy 5.4 V8 in the front. That packed a serious punch. A little bit like the AC Cobra, I suppose. It was like a UK car with some American muscle in and beautifully styled. Some other things to mention on this is it was actually designed, if you like, by two guys, Mr. Gordon and Mr. Keeble, funnily enough. And they were really good engineers, because not only did they put that big lump in the front with power and its rear-wheel drive, but also they put some thought into things like suspension and brakes, which, you know, back in the day, 1960s technology, that was usually at the back of the queue, but not with these guys. They put disc brakes all around, decent suspension. You got a Dion axle at the back, double wishbone suspension. I mean, it's a lovely car to drive. And as far as the styling is concerned, you know, it reminds me of you know, some of the Lancias of the early 60s with those two headlights at the front. And talking about the front, people are probably going to be wondering, what's with the tortoise logo? Funny story on that. Essentially, there was no real logo at the start when they came up with the concept and designed this car. But as they were doing a photo shoot, a pet tortoise walked in front of the car. And they thought it was so funny with the juxtaposition of like a slow tortoise going in front of a very, very quick car. They thought, perfect, let's use that as a logo. So I quite like that. And talking about the logo, one of the reasons why we're doing the video today is because I'm just about to drive to our machinist, Chris, to pick up the last piece of the puzzle, which essentially is the centerpiece for the steering wheel. Because although it's got an original steering wheel on there, the center, which I assume it had one, but let's assume it had a center to the steering wheel, is missing. So we thought, well, what can we do with that? I know, let's get a nice machine center for it, and let's see if we can't get a tortoise logo machined into it as well. So we're on our way to see Chris now to pick up that piece. So I'm really, you know, quite excited to see it. But back to the car. So styling I've discussed. Now it had two fuel tanks at the back which weren't linked. Don't ask me. Quite a feature on this are the rear lights. So the rear lights on this are essentially off a Ferrari GTE, a Ferrari 250 GTE, and also I believe the Fiat 1200 had these rear lights. Really, really rare rear lights. So when we had this car in the workshop, essentially we bagged up the lights because they were worth a small fortune and put them in a very safe place. So I'm glad to say at the end of the project, the lights are all good and they're back on the car. The other thing to say about this is it's fiberglass. Essentially, it's a tubular steel construction, fiberglass body, which usually isn't too much of a problem. But on this, it posed a problem for us as far as battery mounting. Because essentially, from here onwards to the rear, it's nothing but fiberglass. So from that bulkhead there to there, nothing but fiberglass. And essentially, it wouldn't have been strong enough to support the rear battery pack. So what we did is something related to the story of this particular car, which is it extended the roll cage. And you're all probably thinking, why is there a roll cage in a Gordon Keeble? Well, it's fair to say that this car wasn't a standard Gordon Keeble when it came into the workshop. In here was a V8, but it was a a motorsport prepped aftermarket V8. This car was rallied, and I'll put some photos up so you can see some of the shots of the Scandinavian rallies that it was in. So it was already modified with an aftermarket big V8 in there and some big massive carbs in there. It had a half roll cage from the late 60s, early 70s. And obviously in the back there it had, you know, multiple fuel pumps. It was full on rally spec, which is, you know, no bad thing. Me and Tim were like our rallying, it's fair to say. What we did with the roll cage, because we had to support that battery pack, and the roll cage was 1960s technology, let's say, we took that roll cage out and we put in a modern spec roll cage. But at the same time, we continued the roll cage back to essentially be like a cantilever here, so that essentially it could support the rear battery pack. So that's how we got around that problem of getting a heavy battery pack supported on fiberglass. Essentially, we just put in an extension to the roll cage. Interior wise, obviously the interior's all been decked out as well. So retrimmed seats, dashboard as well, and also all our EV custom dials. Kept the back seat. It wasn't a massive back seat anyway. So you're all probably wondering, what drivetrain have we put in it? Well, it was American muscle to start with, so what else would we do but go with modern US muscle, and that's Tesla power. So we've gone from a 5.4 litre American Chevy V8 to a Tesla US electric muscle in the back with a large Tesla drive unit knocking out about 450 horsepower. So this thing flies down the road now, and we've softened up the acceleration so it's a nice, you know, comfortable, lazy acceleration. But believe me, the power is still there underneath your right foot, that's for sure. Battery pack wise, it's got an 85 kilowatt hour battery pack. So again, you know, it should be giving you around about 200 miles. So still got a bit of that GT feel to it, just cruising along, loads of power, decent amount of range. And that's about it really. We kept everything else pretty much standard, apart from, I think we've replaced the springs at the rear because they were a little bit too soft. Again, because it was in rally spec, somebody had put on some aftermarket coilovers on the rear, so it didn't have the standard like spring and shocks. It had a aftermarket setup, so that made it easy for us to adjust the height and also change the springs, which is what we did. I think enough talking. You're probably bored of me talking by now, so it's time to go for a spin. Let's go and pick up this centre to the steering wheel, because I'm really keen to see what it's like. Right, we're on our way now. So on our way to see Chris to pick up the steering wheel centre, and it just feels like a typical 1960s GT really. I mean, nice and, you know, comfortable. It's like an armchair in here, quite frankly. We've got a centre armrest which we made as well, and got it retrimmed. Some drinks holders down here as well. But as far as the interior is concerned, it's pretty much as it was really. I mean, lots of dials, and obviously these dials are telling things like motor temperature and battery state of charge now, but essentially it's still got the same number of dials, same size analog dials in as used to be in here. Same switches. That looks like an old-fashioned like aircraft switch gear setup here. The only modern touch, if you like, is this touchscreen down here, which the customer wanted a touchscreen infotainment system with a rear camera and Bluetooth and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, really comfortable car to drive. Right, now we've arrived and we're still waiting for the thing to be finished. I thought I'd give you a couple of, well, a little bit of a tour around the car that I didn't cover at the house. So let's have a look at the engine bay. So as mentioned, the main battery pack is in the front. So in here, we've got the majority of the batteries, and that's pretty much weighing the same as the original V8 and gearbox that came out of here. I think it's actually a little bit lighter, to be fair. It's got the 2 master cylinders there, so the 2 vacuum boosted master cylinders there. You've got your DC to DC converter, radiator at the front, obviously, because we've got to still cool things like the motor, inverter and the battery packs. You've got your power steering pump, 12 volt battery down there, and that's pretty much it in the front. So essentially one big battery and some other bits and pieces. So that's in the front. There you go. Now in the back, obviously this used to have 2 fuel tanks, but obviously no more. So in here is the filler for the coolant. So essentially coolant filled in there, and down here, that's your charger. So charge point in there, type 2 charger. And in the boot, as we already mentioned, from around about there backwards, it was all fiberglass, and we've kind of extended the roll cage now to be able to support the battery pack, which is underneath here. But essentially, this is now your boot. So you've still got a decent sized boot as well. And there's a small battery pack underneath there. I think it's about 6 Tesla modules in there and around about 10 up front. So there you go, that's the rest of the car. So I think it's time to go and see if Chris has finished with that steering centre. So let's have a look. Now that's getting finished off in there, I've come out with Chris from More Engineering just to have a little bit of a chat about the history of this place, because it's actually quite an interesting, area. This, I remember this having, massive, huge masts on that mountain when I was a kid. But tell us a bit about the history, because that's pretty much all I know. Big masts, something to do with submarines. So over to Chris, the historian.
So this place was built during 1942, during the Second World War, for the Admiralty. It was a transmitting station. Like Richard said, there was masts, so there's footings in the fields here. There's a mast straddling the driveway, like an Eiffel Tower style. And then this was called the VLF station, so very low frequency radio. It's about 18 hertz, I believe. So the main lead out went out the back of my workshop, up to the hill, and then in 2 delta formations to the masts here. And that gave them radio coverage across the Northern Hemisphere mainly.
All right, let's go and see if it's finished. It's all gone quiet, so I'm assuming it's ready?
Finished, yeah.
It has. Cool, go on then, let's have a look. Oh, all right, hang on. Let Tim get a close-up of that. Let's do the big reveal. Get the lubricant off. Wow. That looks spot on. Look at that. Cool. Awesome. Happy with that?
Get it out. Yeah, it looks good.
Quality inspection first.
Take it out and try it in the car.
Let's go and try it in the car then. Right, before I put this on the steering wheel, I want to show you exactly what it is. It's a copy of that badge there. And Chris has had to design this basically from scratch, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that took some drawing.
It did. Took a couple of hours of
brilliant
head scratching at the computer.
Spot on. Every single leaf is absolutely spot on there, mate. Fantastic. Let's go and see if it fits. Moment of truth. You nervous? Are you confident?
Yeah, it'll fit.
It'll fit, he says. It'll fit. Right, better get it on straight then. Right. Get the header tortoise up there. Oh, that's snug. Look at that. Happy with that?
That sets it off, doesn't it?
That's perfect. Nice one, Chris.
Cool. Excellent.
Good job, mate.
Cheers.
That's it. The car is now complete. And I think a few more test miles and it's ready for the customer to pick it up. So I think on that note, I think that's going to be the end of the video this week, and hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one.